and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All your favorite social media sites. Yeah, we're there. If you want to drop us a line or if you want to tune in that way, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is just my name, at Chelsa Messinger. You know the drill. If you want to send me a pick or a parlay, preferably a winner. I've been tailing some people's picks that have not been winners. That's never fun. Uh, and you try not to be bitter towards those people, but it is a little hard when you lose money and you thought that they were picking winners. But we hope not to do that to you guys today. We're hoping for all winners here, at least a good percentage. We're talking a whole lot of college basketball as well as NBA because it's that time of year. March Madness, it's officially March now, which means the tournament is right around the corner. So if you're just starting to bet college basketball, if you're just now starting to pay attention to college basketball so your bracket can be good, we've got you covered. We've been doing college basketball all year long, and we've been paying attention. We know which teams are doing big things, which teams are peaking at the right time. Speaking of teams who are not peaking at the right time, Duke, they've lost 3 of 4, all three of those losses being to unranked teams. We're talking their game against NC State, which is my team, which they never seem to be peaking at the right time. Every time we do well and we get ranked, we'll lose to somebody terrible. And that's really frustrating as a sports fan. I know there are people out there that get me. We're also talking NBA, which can be frustrating as well. When you're talking some of these games, when you take an under and they go to overtime. Man, I sound bitter today. I've got to have a better attitude. I promise that more positive thinking is on the way as we talk college basketball and NBA on today's Picks and Parlays. After the break, we're talking college basketball with Sean Higgs. And then after that, NBA with Craig and Tony T. Stick with us after the break for college hoops talk on Picks and Parlays. Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You know the spiel. I've done it a lot. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger if you want to drop me a line, or if you want to check us out on YouTube, Winning Free Picks. That's what we're under now. Or Facebook, search Picks and Parlays. Right now, we're diving into some college hoops because it's March. It's March 1st, which means the tournament is right around the corner. And of course, we've got plenty of college basketball to talk about. We've got Sean Higgs joining us with his baseball shirt. Looks like you're about to be Benny the Jet Rodriguez stealing home plate.
Yeah, stealing home plate. That's me. I was more of a definitely not a Steeler kind of guy. I threw out some Steelers. I was a catcher back in my athletic heydays, but not much speed on the bases. I was more of a lumbering gorilla, maybe.
Hey, it's called power. You say you hit for power.
Although my coach said I was more of a meat and potatoes kind of guy. Like I was a line drive. I never was just a roping them to the alley. There's a lot of doubles in my life.
What are all those like coaching cliches? Like he brings his lunch pail to work every day. He's got a high motor. God, those are the worst. It's NFL Combine season, which means we're hearing a lot of those these days.
Yeah, the high motor. I love that. Yeah, he's such a high energy guy.
He's a real pro.
You better be a high energy guy. You play football. If you're not playing high energy, you're gonna get destroyed. You better come in with some high energy. Holy cow!
All right.
I love the coach speak.
I know it's fun. It's a nice little drinking game to play during the NFL Combine if you're watching. Yeah, if
the
it's like
Olympics.
Right. If it's like a white slot receiver, you know they're going to talk about the Patriots. Um, Anyways, let's get back to schedule.
The little
NC
college
State Duke
hoops.
is the first game on our docket on our card today. NC State is plus 13. Total is 151 and a hook against Duke. Duke 23-6, but they've lost 3 of their last 4. All 3 of those games coming to unranked teams, including NC State. NC State beat them last time by 22 points, but it seemed like
Yeah.
everything went right for NC State in that game, which doesn't happen often, I will tell you. So, yeah, and what I mean by that is they had 44 points in the first half, shot 45% from the field, and 8 for 13 from the 3-point line. So I'm not just making that up. So I'm wondering,
Oh, no.
can they do it again? You think they can cover 13 points against Duke?
Well, I mean, as I said, you're going to beat Duke or any team like that by 22. You got to be, coach speak, hitting on all cylinders, as they say. I mean, like, really, everything's going right when you're winning by 22 over Duke. But we don't need 22 here. I see 12.5. I see 151.5. Let's be honest, these guys are struggling a little bit. You know, back-to-back losses. Virginia slowed it down, played their ball, dictated what they wanted to do, and came out with an ugly win there. There's something about this Duke team, though. I mean, look at last year. What they have? 3 of the top 10 picks. I mean, Coach K, what? I don't know. I'm leaning towards the points here. I like the points. Just of late, listen, no defense from Duke at all. 11 of the last 12 have gone over, even thrown in that ugly Virginia game. So the defense isn't there for them. Maybe, you know, it wasn't as much as it's a fluke when you are that well at home, putting up a 22-point win. Maybe it has something to do with the defense. I think that's a big problem for them lately. 2-6 against the spread. The last 7. 2-6 last 8, 3-7 last 10. So yeah, I was looking at my next one was 3-7. So yeah,
great math.
They haven't been
there.
covering these numbers. Yeah, you know, it's late over here in Jersey. 8 o'clock is getting, you know, past close to bedtime. No,
right.
But really, I don't like the defense, and you see it. They're not covering these big numbers. Give me Carolina. These guys are on the bubble, 18-11. I know if this was the Big Ten, they'd be considered a team because they're 500 in conference, but they need a good win. Hang tough here. You never know what could happen. We see the teams go down. It's been a crazy year in college basketball. Teams getting beat left and right. Baylor goes down again. So listen, nobody's that dominant this year, and Duke has shown that they're not covering numbers. Let's take the 12.5 points. If you grab 13, get the 13. And if you want to look at the over, again, Duke 11-2 to the over last 13. That might be something you want to look at also. But I'm more heavy on the dog here. Let's take NC State and the points.
Right. This seems like a matchup between 2 teams that have been terrible at covering lately. NC State 1-4 against the spread in their last 5, and as you mentioned, Duke 2-6 against the spread in their last 8. So something's got to give. 13 is just a lot of points, especially in conference play, especially for a team that's already beat Duke once this season, not that long ago, by 22 points. So maybe they have their number. As an NC State fan, I hate betting NC State because then it's just like a double crotch punch if they lose and you lose money. So let's move on. Let's go to Texas Tech, Baylor. Texas Tech, the number 22 team in the land. Baylor, number 2 after losing to Kansas. They've had a rough stretch. They're coming off a loss to TCU. That was a big upset there. Texas Tech, they close out the year playing Baylor and Kansas. So it's a rough stretch for them. This is going to be the start of a tough end to Big 12 play for them. Texas Tech is road dogs in this one. Baylor is -8. Total is 130.5. Who do we like?
They bounce back from that loss. This is who they are. But then they lay an egg here, or excuse me, in the last game. So you kind of scratch your head a little bit. One, Kansas is going to wrap up the conference. I mean, so they don't have to worry about that. Texas Tech, though, these guys last year came out struggling. You know, obviously, like Virginia, you get that target on their back. Teams are playing extra hard. And you got a young team. You're led by a freshman in scoring, sophomore in scoring, number 2 in their scoring there. So it takes a little time to gel with everybody coming together. I've liked the way they've been playing, but 3-6 on the road stuff, and you're closing Baylor and then in Kansas. I don't know. This is the time for them to play a little better. You think that they'd steal one of these games based on their talent alone? I don't know. I'm leaning the points here on Baylor just simply because I like Baylor, but maybe we've seen something here the last with this last game. Maybe I don't know what to say. They rebound incredible. Texas Tech's not a good rebounding team, but yet they somehow end up losing games by 2 or 3 points. So they're right there with it. But something tells me Baylor here, I don't know. Maybe they're taking a step back. Like, are we really as good as that 23-game win streak? Did we get lucky in that first route over Kansas with things going right, as we talk about sometimes in games? So I'm going to take the 8 points based on, I don't know, Baylor might be questioning themselves a little bit because I don't think TCU is that great a team. Maybe some people think they're kind of a bubble team. I don't know. I don't get into that kind of bracket kind of stuff, but I'm going to take the points here. I just think Baylor, I don't know if their heads are in the right spot right now after that loss. That's just that's where I'm going. I'm taking the points here.
I think 8 points is a lot for Baylor against Texas Tech, just because these are two teams that both play great defense. So in a game where there's only, say, 50 or 60 points scored, 8 points is a lot. So I think 8 points is a lot to give Texas Tech, a team that's ranked, mind you. Granted, Baylor's number 2, Texas Tech number 22, but still this year in college basketball, it seems like the rankings, there's not that big of a gap between the top and the bottom.
And they're more desperate. They've lost 2 straight. They need to straighten the ship here going into the tournament for the Big 12. So that's why I'm kind of like, you know what? You mentioned the defense. They're a gritty team. I mean, they get out rebounded 35-19 and still lose a game by 2 or 3 points. So the ability is there to score when need be. But again, it's probably going to be an ugly kind of game. I'll grab the points. So I'm with you on Texas Tech. The solid defense, and it's just been such a topsy-turvy year in college. What do those numbers mean? 1, 2, 10, 8. I really don't think it means much.
Right, especially according to Vegas. We've seen in some of these spreads, the Vegas doesn't take too much stock in these rankings. We're running out of time. Sean Higgs.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Happens. I will see you
all right
on Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure. We're back after the break on Picks and Parlays, talking more basketball. This time we're talking NBA with Craig Trapp. Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to tune in that way, we're always welcoming on all of your favorite social media platforms. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger. As I've mentioned in the open, we're talking all kinds of basketball today because it's that time of year, and there's so many basketball games to talk about. Unlike football season where it's just once a week, you can win or lose money just about every night when it comes to basketball. So we're here to indulge your need to bet on basketball. Right now we're talking NBA with Craig Trapp. Craig, how you doing over there?
Finally, it's March. Hopefully, as we turn the calendar, we get the March Madness. We kind of turned my picks around the last few days, 3 days maybe, have not been great. I've had some really bad upsets, not even close. So I don't know. We were talking before the show. I don't know if that's better when you completely whiff and you lose by 20, or if you sweat out and you lose by half a point. It's a loss either way, but I'm glad March is here and start to build our bankroll for 2 weeks away, Selection Sunday.
Sounds good to me. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie.
Might be 3. I don't know. It's either 2 or 3.
I know it's in March. That's all I need to know. Let's talk about NBA. Let's start with the Bucks and the Heat. Bucks 52-8 on the season, 35-25 against the spread. Heat are 38-22, 30-28-2 against the number. Do we have a line on this one?
Well, I don't have a line on this one as of yet. I do see the advance line. The Bucks here in either 5.5 to 6.5, which makes a little sense. This Bucks team has been red hot. They continue to just kind of put a hammer down on people, and totals have been crazy. We see a opening total of 227, which is kind of low for this team because we've seen them go way over in several occasions, including that Washington 137-4 in overtime. On the 24th, so just a week ago. But when you look at these two teams, not a whole lot to like about this Heat team lately. I had liked this team as far as the grittiness that Jimmy Butler brought, but then they've gone to just go 1-3 against the spread in the last 4 and 2-2 straight up. Chelsea, this team kind of looks like it maybe hit a wall in this time of year. Maybe it's injuries, but they got to fix things because if you want to win the East, you're going to have to get home court in the top 4 seed range if you're the Miami Heat.
Right. It just looks like the Heat have not been a good team against the number as of late. As you mentioned, some of those stats against the spread, 3-8 against the spread in their last 11. Meanwhile, the Bucks have been a good team and a pretty good cover team as well. 9-3 against the number in their last 12, including 17-13 against the number on the road. They have 6 straight wins. However, some things to note: Kyle Korver is out. Chris Middleton is questionable. However, they still have Giannis, who James Harden's been trash talking lately. So, Giannis is going to be wanting to prove that he's not just a dunker, because I think that's what James Harden was kind of alluding to, that he didn't have too much skill, that he was just tall, and makes high percentage shots. But that is neither here nor there. The Heat 7 straight overs. So, as you mentioned, that total might be worth looking at as well. Last meeting, the Heat actually won on the road at Milwaukee, 131-126. That was probably an over as 11-point dogs. Any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like the Bucks to get revenge in this one. That loss earlier, they haven't lost a whole lot in Milwaukee. So when you do lose, you definitely, you put an asterisk by that one. They just got 8 losses on the year. I like them here. I think they get it done. They're on the year. They're 24-5 straight up on the road. So as long as it's within that 5 to 6 point range, I'm going to take the Milwaukee Bucks here. The one worry, like you said, Chris Middleton is banged up and questionable. If he plays, then I'm definitely all over him at 5 and 6. I like the Bucks here to continue the recent struggles for, like we said, the Miami Heat when it comes to against the spread. Just 1-3 against the spread in the last 4 games overall.
Mavs 36-24 on the year, 25-3 against the number. Bulls 20-40, not great. 26-32-2 against the spread. Do we have a line on this one as well?
No, the question here, there's no line because Luka Doncic is questionable here. And, if he plays, obviously top 5, maybe top 10 player in the league now. But either way, one of the great superstars in the future for sure. One of the great young talents in the league. The advanced line, if he plays, is Dallas -4.5 here. And I kind of like that a little bit. And then the total, we see a pretty high total here. And we see the total at 229 in the advanced line. Like I said, these could change depending on if Luka Doncic plays or not. But my initial lean here, it's all about this Dallas team. And when Doncic plays, they're one of the more exciting teams. They've been really good for us bettors, 3-1 in the last 4 against the spread. Against a Bulls team that is just 2-5 in their last 7 against the spread. So is that 2-4? Sorry, 2-4 in their last 6. So I got to lean towards if Luka's playing for Dallas here, and I also think the over is a pretty good play. When he plays, they really push the ball a lot more. And I think we've seen, unfortunately, this year it's been all about the offense in the NBA, and I think it's another one here if Luka Doncic plays tonight.
For sure. And something I noticed, even if Luka does not play, Kristaps Porzingis actually plays pretty well when Luka's out. He takes over and he scores a lot of points. So you might even get better value on the Mavs if Luka is out. And I think they still play pretty well, especially against teams. You know what? The Bulls, not very good. I think their record speaks for themselves, and also 3-8-1 against the spread in their last 12. Anything else worth noting in this matchup?
Well, this Bulls team, it's a team that seems like, basically since Derrick Rose's injury, it's maybe 5 to 7, 8 years ago, they've kind of just been, in that lottery spot. And they're kind of there again this year where it's like they're not good enough to go for it to make the playoffs. They're not bad enough to get a top guarantee, probably a top 2 or 3 pick. And it's a tough way to make a living. To be really good in the NBA now, you got to either get the top couple pick or you need to go for it and trade and they haven't done that. So I just think you have to fade this Bulls team until change. It sounds like, a lot of the fans want some upheaval as far as coaching and a GM and the front office. So I think you might see that in the offseason. But until then, we're going to fade the Chicago Bulls team.
Right. That's almost the worst as a fan when your team is good enough to, win some games, but not bad enough to get those top picks. Even though in the NBA, it's not even fair. It's a lottery. What was it, the year that the Celtics got Jaylen Brown? I think they went to the playoffs. So that's got to be a little frustrating for some teams to sit back and watch. Let's move on to the Pacers and the Spurs. The Pacers are 36-24 on the year, 30-27-3. Spurs are 25-33, 24-33-1 against the number. Do we have a line?
No line on this one. The Spurs team continues to be really banged up. But I do see the advanced line right now. Indiana just favored by 2 at one book and 1.5 at the other. So I think it's going to be real close to in that 1 to 2 range, one way or the other. So I don't think it really matters who's favored here. I think you have to give the Pacers a little edge in this one, as this Pacers defense is just clearly better. The Spurs, what used to be one of the better defenses in the league, has not been there this year. They have been a team that scores and gives up a lot of points. It's kind of funny how Popovich has embraced the whole new, metrics and the three-pointers and all that. They're just 1-2 straight up in their last 3 and 0-3 against the spread in their last 3. So for me, I have to lean to this Pacers team, and I think they're starting to play a little better. Victor Oladipo's finally starting to work his way back into shape and to fit in that roster. 5-1 straight up in their last 5 games, with the only loss, that embarrassing loss when they set out Oladipo and some other guys with Toronto. So I think when you look at this one, Chelsa, you have to look at this Pacers team, and as they continue to push for that top 3 or 4 seed in the East, I think they're going to be a very tough team to beat. If you're Toronto, if you're Milwaukee, if you're the Sixers, or even Boston, I don't think you want to face this Indiana team. So you better not let them get the home court edge if you're one of those top other teams.
Right. The East should be pretty interesting when it comes to the playoffs, because there are several teams kind of like that maybe if they peak at the right time. Obviously, the Bucks are the team to beat, but the Raptors, what a story they've been. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to contend. But circling back to this game, the Pacers, as you mentioned, they've been hot as of late, at least for winning straight up, winning 5 of 6. But they've only covered in 1 of their last 4. So that makes me a little gun shy on them. Spurs just 9-19 against the spread at home, though, and they haven't covered in their last 3, so they haven't been a great cover team either. They won the last meeting on the road, 111-100 as 1.5-point dogs, worth noting. Not sure if there was any injuries in that one as well, though. And 2-7 against the spread in their last 9. That's all my stats I have for that game.
Well, when you look at the Spurs team, this Spurs team that they just don't win like they used to. They do not win with defense. They really rely on their three-point shooting, and they don't run guys off the three-point line like they used to. They just give up way too many pointers, and they don't play good defense. They're playing a team in Indiana that actually plays good defense, which is a rarity in the NBA right now. So when it's that case and it's a short line, I'm going to go with a hotter team, and this Indiana team, even though they haven't been great against the spread, it's been because they've had to lay big numbers lately. This one's a lot lower number. I think Indiana covers here and gets a nice win on the road in San Antonio.
You talked about defense. Any leanings towards a total?
This Indiana team's actually been one of the better teams lately on the under, so I think I would lean towards the under here, but I wouldn't go crazy on this one on the under, just because the Spurs are so poor on defense and they shoot so many threes. So if a team gets hot and goes a quarter and they make 4 or 5 threes, all of a sudden that can blow up your over. So I think the much stronger play is on the Indiana Pacers, and you lay the points here.
Right. That kind of scares me about teams that shoot 3 balls a lot, because you can live and die by that. When we talk about March Madness, some of these teams that rely on hot shooting, that seems to be the case. Thanks, Craig, for joining us. We hope we have some winners this week.
Yes, I hope so too.
All right. We're back after the break with even more NBA with Tony T on Picks and Parlays. Welcome back. to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You know the drill. If you want to search us on any of those, we're always welcome. We always welcome your feedback and comments and questions and everything sports betting related. Right now, jumping right back into some NBA. This time we've got Tony T joining us from the West Coast to talk a few NBA games. Tony T, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Chelsa, of course, Selection Sunday, 2 weeks away. The NBA playoffs will begin in 7 weeks, but something that got my interest this weekend, Chelsa, looking at the games, it was pretty funny here. I don't know if you noticed when you saw Trevor Ariza give that bump over to Trey.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It kind of reminded me what the NBA was. It kind of reminded me what the NBA was like 10 years ago. You go, here, son, let me give you a taste of what the NBA was like when I came in. Why don't you put a little bit of muscle there on those bones? Because had you came in the league when I came in the league, you'd be a 6 man off the bench, my friend.
Here's what he's talking about for the people who don't know what he's talking about. Trae Young was trying to nutmeg somebody, which means you dribble it between their legs and basically make them look stupid. And he probably wanted to be another highlight, because we talked about this the other day on the show. We're living in the era of going viral for highlights. But yeah, that was pretty funny to me. I think, who are some of the great defenders kind of in the 90s? Who is it, like Ron Harper? Who played for Gary Payton? Am I thinking of the right
Gary
person?
Payton, the glove.
The glove?
The glove.
Or if Dennis Rodman
there was
would
some
have done that to somebody.
Oh yeah, there would have been quite a bit there back in the day. And again, it's funny what we've seen. The league has really changed the past 10 years. Is they allow these little guys to you can't touch them, you can't blow on them. We want to keep them healthy. And it reminded me back to Stephen Curry. If you remember back when he started in the NBA, he was injured a lot. And we saw the NBA change the rules. Let's help these little guys. Let's speed up the game. We don't want too much. We don't want any collisions, which causes injuries. If we go back and remember, guys like Ricky Rubio, just a simple collision with his knee with Kobe when he was like in his teens, and he suffered a devastating injury. I can think back of some other young stars, superstars in their teens over 10 years ago that suffered some severe injuries. But again, when you got these guys that don't have their bodies developed, you can see why the NBA has changed their rules here to permit more of a free-flowing game, not too much hand checking. That's gone. The holding, of course, the hard fouls are gone pretty much. And that's why you're seeing guys like, we say, Trae Young, who would have been a 6 man off the bench 10 years ago. Well, he's starting scoring like crazy, and there's no accountability for him to play defense.
And also, we've been seeing some Oscar-winning flops lately. I don't know if you saw the LeBron one. That one was pretty funny. If you're on Twitter, look up LeBron's latest flop. It's a real gem. But let's get to these games as promised. Let's start with the Jazz and the Cavs. I have the Jazz as minus 8.5 point favorites. Total is 219. Jazz 0-5 against the spread in their last 5. Not great. 1-4 straight up in their last 5. The Cavs 5-1-1 against the number in their last 7. Overall, not a great team, but at least they're decent against the spread. 17-14, 17-43 on the year straight up. 27-30-3 against the number. What are we leaning in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cavaliers here at plus 8.5. Cleveland's been competitive since the coaching change. They made the change here. It just didn't work for them. The coach they had, they were a little bit too tough on the players. They're not used to that defensive style, kind of a Jerry Sloan type of attitude there. Beeline is tough, and of course, this generation of players didn't respond. So we need a coaching change. Oh, everything's okay. Yeah, you got beat on film. We're not going to call you out in film room. We're going to forgive you for some of these mistakes. I guess that's the direction now. But when you look at Cleveland, they've covered 5 of their past 6. They've won 3 of 4 at home with notable wins against the Heat and 76ers. But one thing about the Jazz, we know they've failed to cover 4 straight with a push in there, but the defense has been atrocious. Remember we talked about the midseason awards, why I couldn't give Rudy Gobert the award because this Jazz team goes in streaks. They play good defense, then they don't play it. Here's the span without playing any defense. Look at their past 5 games, allowing nearly 50% shooting, 44% from 3. Cleveland, well, they're shooting the ball a little better, and I just cannot lay points on a road with a team in bad defensive form, so I'm going to take the points here with Cleveland.
And if I'm reading correctly, last meeting 115-99 in Utah for a push, and that time they were 16-point favorites. So I don't know. just to recap, who'd you like? The Cavs?
I like taking I'll take the points here. Cleveland plus 8.5. They're shooting the ball a little better, and the Utah Jazz in one of those funks where they're not defending.
Right. Sorry, I was looking at too many stats and off in La La Land. Let's move on to the Rockets and the Knicks. As I mentioned, maybe it was in the intro, James Harden's been talking all kinds of crap about Giannis, saying, yeah, it'd be easy for me too if I was 7-1 and all I had to do was dunk. James Harden has been scoring a ton of points. So is Westbrook. That small ball they've embraced. And those two guys are really benefiting off of it. Against the Knicks here, they're 9.5-point favorites on the road. 230.5 is the total. Yeah, that looks high, but actually the Rockets have hit the under in 6 of their last 9. I think that's just because the numbers have been so high. Everybody thinks they score a lot of points. So, yeah, Vegas knows that, and they set the total accordingly. What are you feeling on this one?
Yeah, with the Rockets, I kind of take a wait and see when they play the good teams, and I'm going over when they play the bad teams. And that's really what it's been like here with these Rockets. So I'm going to go over total of 230.5. You know, the Rockets and their small lineup. Remember, they just faced the Knicks over a week ago, and they combined for 235 points. The Knicks didn't have the greatest shooting game, but the reason why they were competitive is because New York pulled down 16 more rebounds than Houston. And if you look at Houston, as I keep talking about over and over, it may hurt them in the playoffs. They keep getting beat on the glass night in and night out with that small lineup. But when you look at the Rockets, they have averaged 120 or greater points in 4 of their past 5 games. That exception was against that really good defensive team in Boston. But New York, since their coaching change, they have shown improvement offensively. Their span of 5 games hit nearly 49% of their shots. And of course, the Rockets here in that same span put up nearly 126 points a game. Hey, they're in New York, you know, a Harden company. They're going to want to show, you know, when they increase their popularity, you know, and, you know, try to make a case for their MVPs and all their individual awards, but they seem to love over there in Houston. I think this is a spot for them to showcase their talents and not play a whole lot of defense, because there's really not much accountability for lack of defense. There's more focus on offense. I like the offense winning here. Let's go over 230.5.
Right, especially if James Harden's been running his mouth lately. You know he has to back it up. And something we were kind of talking about, a throwback to the years past, how the NBA has changed. That's something that I've noticed has seemed to change. It seems like all the players are friends now. So that was really strange to me that James Harden kind of took a shot at Giannis, who seems to be a likable guy, because there are some guys in the league that, you know, everybody talks trash about. Green, and some people don't like Pat Beverly. But yeah, I think James Harden has something to prove here. And maybe, I don't know, on my little app, you can do player totals for how many points they score. I'm not sure what the number is, but that might be worth looking at as well, I guess.
Yeah, player totals, I think Harden would come in with a big game. And of course, I think we need to set the bar a little higher for these players. We get all excited when they score 50, but when you score 50 and you get up 230, it doesn't matter. I think we should set the bar up to 70. We need to see 70-point nights from these guys, especially with the lack of defense that's going on in the league.
Well, the funny thing is, when Devin Booker got that, what was it, 80-point game? They still lost.
Yeah, I know.
And like the Suns put that all on social media, and everybody's like, well, you lost, so.
Yeah, come see Devin score 80 and we'll lose the game, but you'll see Devin score 80. I mean, that's what it's come down to, unfortunately, with some of these markets that are so out of it. They really don't have much to do. I remember back here in LA when we had 2 teams, but the Clippers, in their advertising campaign was advertising the opposing stars of the team that were coming in to sell tickets.
That's tough. That's like Tampa Bay Rays. It's tough. It sucks for them because the Rays are actually a good team and they deserve good fans. But whenever they play just about anybody in the AL East, which is their division, so it would be pretty frequently the Yankees, the Red Sox, you'd see Yankees and Red Sox fans at the Trapp, which is a little disappointing. But yeah, it just seems like the NBA has turned into a very individualized league, where a lot of guys are me first. Even in that, I will say, Kobe Bryant, I don't know if you heard it, what was it, the memorial service, where he told Shaq, yeah, there's no I in team, but there is a me. So, I don't know. Let's move on to the Grizz and the Hawks. The Grizzlies are coming off a win over the Lakers. I believe. Yeah, to snap a 5-game losing streak. They were frustrated, and they finally snapped the streak against the Lakers in a big way. Grizz 29-31 on the year, 31-28-1 against the number. The Hawks and Trae Young, our favorite modern-day NBA superstar, they're favored in this one -2.5. Total is 239.5. What do we like?
Well, you know what I said on the rapid fire? When you say Atlanta, I say over. I'm going to continue. As long as the totals stay under 240, I'm going over here. You know, last year they combined for 243 points and 248 in their two meetings, and Memphis was a trash offensive team last year. Now they're a better offensive team. You know, look at the Hawks combined totals here the past 5 games: 243, 250, 259, 246. Atlanta, they play at the 4th fastest pace, and the Memphis Grizzlies at the 5th fastest pace. You have a lot of young legs out there that like to run the ball up and down the court, don't play a whole lot of defense. Hawks have gone over in 13 of the past 17. One thing to note here, when Memphis faces a bad team with a losing home record, the result has gone over in 4 straight. So you got to look at some of these overs, bad team versus bad team. You're going to see a lot of that here as we get towards the tail end of the season when teams are out of it like the Hawks. There's no defensive intensity whatsoever. We even saw that, believe it or not, in the Sunday game with that Clippers and 76ers team, because the Clippers, and I knocked myself, I should have caught this, I should have known better here. When you see there's no Joel Embiid, you see they're missing their top defensive guard for the 76ers, you know there wasn't going to be much intensity defensively. Of course there wasn't, it was a high scoring game. That's what I mean, not a lot of intensity brought to the court by these Hawks. You look at their past 5 games, allowing 48% shooting, and the Grizzlies are shooting the ball well. It'll be fast paced, and as long as it stays under 240, I'm going over 239.5 in this Memphis-Atlanta game.
I think it's definitely fair to say that the Hawks qualify as a bad team, but what about the Grizzlies? Aren't they contending for, the 8th spot in the West? Or are they in the East?
They are contending for they're in the West. They're in the West. They are in contention right now.
They should be in the East.
Yeah, and they're in trouble because they're holding a 2.5 game lead over the Pelicans for that final playoff spot. But here's a team that, that's given up about 115 points a game this season. So they're not a very strong defensive team. Again, they're full of a bunch of young players, and this is where I think they get. And they're on the road, so this is going to get caught up in that pace trap. And they play as I said, at a fast pace. So you got 2 fast-paced teams here. And again, I just going to continue to roll with this Hawks team as long as the total stay under 240. I got to go over with them.
Right. I want to say your over picks last time both hit, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they both hit. I think we had 3 of them too. We hit them all with the overs.
Those are the funnest to bet because you just pull for points.
Wizards, Hawks, and we had a Magic in there. Yeah, those all tailed over.
Even though I'm not going to lie,
I had an extra over there.
Oh, I'm not going to lie. I don't think I've watched any Magic games this year.
Well, yeah, they were. Yeah, you'd fall asleep for most of the time, except the past 10 days where they've kind of changed their style. They're playing Portland on Monday, and I like that game going to go over 223.5 with Orlando and Portland. When you look at Orlando, they've really picked up their pace in scoring. You know, they've gone over in 7 straight, and they're averaging 120 points a game, 48% shooting. The defense has been bad. That's usually what happens, you know, when they improve the offense, the defense goes. But one thing to note, without Damian Lillard in the lineup for Portland, the defense has suffered. They've given up 117 points and 48% shooting. Just go over again, Orlando, Portland.
All right. That wraps up our NBA talk with Tony T. We're back after the break on Picks and Parlays. Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, all your favorite social media platforms. I am your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me every day on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger is my handle. At Picks Parlays is our handle on Twitter if you want to check us out. If you're just now joining us, don't worry, we've got you covered. We're about to wrap up all of our picks in a nice little package. We'll even have a little graphic if you want to write them down. Let's start with our college basketball picks from Sean Higgs. NC State at Duke. He likes the Wolfpack plus 13 in that one to cover that big number. And Texas Tech at Baylor, taking Texas Tech at plus 8. So a couple of dogs he likes. And then finally, NBA picks from Tony T. I can't read the screen. Jazz and Cavaliers taking the Cavs plus 8.5. Sorry, I was wondering which team ended with a Z, and I couldn't think of it. Rockets at Knicks taking the over 230.5. Grizzlies Hawks taking the over 239.5, and then Trailblazers at Magic taking the over at 223.5. A lot of overs Tony T likes, but he picked a lot of overs in the last show, and all of them hit. As we mentioned, the NBA is becoming more and more an offensive league. And yeah, Vegas adjusts the numbers, but sometimes it still goes way over. As I've mentioned, some of these scores are just outrageous. It'll be 131 to 123, especially if they go into overtime. That's nice. A nice little bonus if you have the over that you can sit back and relax. It was a great show. As always, we've got plenty more basketball talk on the way this entire month. We're here every weekday if you want to join us. Monday through Friday, and also Sunday. Yeah, it's been a great show. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, I'm Chelsa Messinger. You're listening to Picks and Parlays.